Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2021. Vision Quest, Part 3. I was recently introduced to crystals for the first time by some online friends. I had read about crystals and heard people talk about them, and I was curious. So I went to a small crystal shop in New Haven and purchased a small Lemurian crystal. I did not know really anything about crystals, but thought it would be best to learn by doing. One day I was meditating, holding this new crystal in my right hand. My left hand was empty, not holding anything. As I sat in meditation, I suddenly realized that there was a crystal in my left hand as well as my right. I did not want to disturb my meditation, so I continued doing my practice despite this odd sensation. Then I felt a surge of energy in my left hand, the one where there was not supposed to be a crystal, and realized this was the energy in a moldavite crystal, a crystal I did not own. I was surprised. I could feel the weight of crystals in both hands. Then the energy shifted, and I could feel the energy of a cavensite crystal in my left hand. I don't know how I knew the energy of each crystal since I owned neither. Then the left-handed crystal disappeared. Days later, I talked to a friend who was familiar with crystals, and I asked her about moldavite and cavensite crystals. A look of fear came across her face, and she warned me not to get these crystals. They were too powerful. I thought about her advice for some time, but decided to ignore it. I could see and feel that she was coming from a place of great fear and not of scientific curiosity. I felt that my recent experience had given me a clear sign to purchase these two crystals. So I drove out to a distant crystal shop that carried these two crystals and brought them home. That night, to push the sense of curiosity to the limit, I decided to put the moldavite crystal in my pajama pocket and go to bed. Around 3 a.m., I suddenly felt the presence of someone in my bedroom in the dark. I could feel that being coming up close to me and felt them reaching out to touch me. Just before their hand made contact with my back, I yelled and woke up from whatever kind of state I was in. Just before I awoke, I caught a glimpse of the person who was in my bedroom. She was a young woman, slender, wearing a tight garment, similar to leotards, but more like a uniform. It had more substance than a leotard did. She appeared to be wearing a mask with ears that stuck up, that made her face look like that somewhat of a cat. The glimpse was momentary but clear. Over the next week, I processed this dream experience. I came to realize over time that she was not from Earth and that she was trying to touch the two surgical scars on my back, perhaps in an attempt to heal me. For the next 3 weeks, I talked with myself, trying to train myself not to be scared if this should ever happen again. I came to realize that she had the ability to not only come into my dreams, but at the same time, I could feel her interact with my physical body. Not knowing who or what she was, I made a guess that she was a multidimensional being, although I wasn't clear what that exactly meant. Until I come to a different understanding, I will stay with this concept of what happened. By coincidence, around this same time, I interviewed a Swedish meditation teacher for my YouTube channel, the channel on Rising Stars of Spirituality. It was supposed to be an interview with a narrow focus on spirituality. But to my surprise, with no prompting from me, she brought up the topic of her own personal contact with multidimensional beings. I was very aware that the session was being recorded for YouTube and felt self-conscious about this topic. This is not something we had talked about in Baptist Sunday School when I was a child, or in yoga lectures from my teacher. Later, I called the Swedish meditation teacher, Annette Carlson, and apologized for blocking her from speaking about this topic. And to make up for it, we decided to produce a second YouTube video about this topic, Encounters with Multidimensional Beings, which is on my YouTube channel. Then, also perhaps not by coincidence, the cat woman began returning to me. She seemed to have sensed my skittishness about her visits to Dreamland, so she tried a new strategy. On 3 consecutive nights, she appeared right after I had awoken. The first night, she touched my back lightly. I felt her touch, but kept from reacting and breathed through my initial fear. The second night, she tested me a bit by leaning into my body so I could feel the weight of her body leaning against me. Once again, she touched my surgical scars with her hand. I felt the tingling of energy in my back, and my lower back muscles slightly rippled in response. The third night she appeared again, with just a light touch. A few nights later, I had a dream that was difficult to understand, and I couldn't figure out how it fit into anything. I dreamed I was driving and came to a small road sign that had the image of a woolly mammoth. At the bottom of the sign was another sign with writing on it, along with an arrow indicating the direction I should go. But the sign did not have normal letters. Instead of letters, it had odd shapes and figures where letters would normally be. I woke up without any clue what these letters meant and what this sign was about. Later in the week, I decided to focus on the cat woman and the sign. As part of my regular practice, once a week, I intentionally went into a trance state. I've been doing this for some time. I decided that on Sunday, December 19th, I would go into a trance and try to find out who this cat woman is. And also in the back of my mind, there was this curiosity about this unusual road sign.